ਸਾਡੇ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਨੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਆਫ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਗਰਨੈਟ ਜੈਨਸ ਹੋਣੀ। ਗਰਨੈਟ ਜੈਨਸ ਹੋਣੀ ਦੂਜੀ ਵਾਰ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਬਣੇ ਨੇ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ, ਔਰ ਸ਼ੇਰਵੁੱਡ ਪਾਰਕ ਫੋਰਟ ਸਸਕੈਚੁਅਨ ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਤੋਂ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਵਾਰ, ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2015 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਫਸਟ ਟਾਈਮ in 2015 and then 2019 he won from this riding. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਬਣ ਚੱਲਿਆ। ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿਆਸ ਰਾਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਐਤਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਗਵਰਨਰ ਜਨਰਲ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਸਿਫਾਰਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇ, ਔਰ ਲਗਭਗ ਜੇਕਰ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਅਜਿਹਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਗਵਰਨਰ ਜਨਰਲ ਮੋਸਟ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ, ਇਹ ਰਿਵਾਜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਆਸੀ ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਗਵਰਨਰ ਜਨਰਲ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਕਾਰਨਵੰਸ਼ ਰੋਕ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਰੋਕਣ ਦੀ ਸੰਭਾਵਨਾ ਘੱਟ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਫਿਰ 20 ਸਤੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਐਨੀਵੇਜ਼, ਗਾਰਨੈਟ ਜੈਨਸ ਹੋਣੀ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ 'ਚ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੋ ਫਾਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਛੋਟੀ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਓਨਲੀ 34 years old ਬਾਏ ਦਾ ਵੇ, ਕਾਰਲਟਨ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਤੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੁੱਢਲੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਲੰਡਨ ਸਕੂਲ ਆਫ ਇਕਨੋਮਿਕਸ ਤੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਸਟਰਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਓਨਲੀ 34 years old ਐਂਡ ਕਾਫੀ ਕੁਝ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ 'ਚ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਹਾਸਲ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ। ਗਰਨੈਟ, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ।
Sat Sri Akal, great to be with you today. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for coming to the studio yourself.
My pleasure. So great to be here.
My first question is very simple, but I think it's very important as well because you are very young and I want to know what brought you to politics.
Well, I have done a lot of work on international human rights, and that's been a big part of the passion motivating me to go into politics. My grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, and just growing up, an awareness of issues of justice, of human rights were a big part of our upbringing. And when I started to see the opportunity to influence change today, even in situations where maybe similar to what my grandmother was experiencing, people are being targeted because of their faith, their ethnic background, that Canada can be a stronger voice on human rights. So human rights was a big part of what motivated my involvement in politics. There were other influences as well, and certainly I've enjoyed the opportunity over the last 6 years to put important issues forward to try to make a difference in Parliament, and grateful for that opportunity to represent my constituents.
You started with provincial politics, Wild Rose Party, MLA. You ran first time, I think, 2012 or something?
Yes, I ran and lost, and in retrospect, I'm grateful I did, because the career I've been able to have thus far at the federal level has, I think, been a real blessing and a great opportunity.
You never know.
Yeah, exactly.
You would have been even premier of Alberta. And then you tried, you were with the great personalities, by the way. Stephen Harper, you had a chance to work with him, and then Andrew Scheer and Rona Ambrose even.
Yes, yeah. So it's been an interesting time to be a member of Parliament. I got elected as a Conservative the same time that Conservatives went from government into opposition. And so it's been 6 years for me there and 6 years of the current Liberal government, and I'm hoping that after the next election I'll have an opportunity to sit on the government side. And I think there's been a number of areas we've been able to make progress on from opposition, but I think on some of the things we're going to talk about, credential recognition, strengthening Canada's leadership on human rights, speeding up processing times for immigration, getting our economy back on solid footing. I think Conservatives are in a good position if we form government to be able to deliver some of those positive changes that people are looking for.
ਗਾਰਨੈਟ ਜੈਨਸ ਹੋਣੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਨੇ, ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਸ ਦਿਆਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਇਹ 2 ਵਾਰਾਂ ਇਹ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਬਣੇ ਨੇ, ਔਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਕਲੀਅਨ ਮੈਗਜ਼ੀਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ 2 ਵਾਰਾਂ ਸਨਮਾਨ ਵੀ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਆਊਟਸਪੋਕਨ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ, ਅਤੇ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਵਾਰਾਂ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨਸ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਈਅਰ, I guess, from ਮੈਕਲੀਅਨ ਮੈਗਜ਼ੀਨ. How did it happen? Did you really work for it?
Well, I was not campaigning for it. It's a vote of other members of Parliament. So I was very surprised to be thus named in 2017, and I guess one of the things that goes into people's choices for that, I think, is just that I tried to work across party lines to get things done when there's an opportunity to do so, especially when it comes to these human rights issues, and that's why I'm very excited about the opportunity we have going into this election on strengthening our engagement on human rights. But yeah, it was a real honor and a real surprise to receive that award, and just a motivation to keep doing the work I'm doing.
So I'll hold on to my personal curious questions for a while. Let's go to the what's going to happen on Sunday. Prime Minister Trudeau is going to Governor General's office, and do you think it's 100% the election is there?
Well, it's pretty clear, given the signals that have been sent from the Liberal camp at this point, that that's their intention. And it's a little bit, let's say, incongruous with some of the other messages they've been giving. Liberals have been talking about the pandemic, and the Chief Public Health Officer has been talking about the fourth wave that, according to Dr. Tam, we're already in. And despite talking about listening to the science, the Liberals are pushing ahead with an election that, frankly speaking, inevitably is going to involve people interacting with each other, being out and about more, going out to vote, and things like that. Of course, we want to encourage people to vote, but to call this election right at the start of a fourth wave, it's setting off some alarm bells for people that the Liberals are putting their political interests ahead of the interests of the country. At the same time, though, an election gives us an exciting opportunity to present our vision for how Conservatives would lead Canada, and we are ready for that. We're excited about that opportunity, and I think that Canadians will, especially because of the timing of the election call, they'll see how the Liberals are putting their own political interests first, and how we as Conservatives will put the national interest first.
But politicians are always politicians. You are sitting in British Columbia presently. What happened in provincial election, nobody was telling Mr. Horgan to go for election, but he did, and he won a majority. So I think he got a very good example, Mr. Trudeau. Nobody can stop him if he can see it happening.
Well, I coming from Alberta, I mean, I know I was watching the provincial election here a year ago from a distance. I know there were some particular circumstances at the time as well. There were some different, there always are in an election, different controversies and discussion about different policy proposals. So I think especially the fact that the Liberals have gotten a lot of support for their agenda from the NDP and the Bloc. I mean, there have been things we've disagreed with as Conservatives, of course, but the Liberals have been able to govern with the support of the other parties. But then also, some of the context here, I think the Liberals want an election because the opposition parties have on certain issues come together to put pressure on the government over their terrible ethics record and their unwillingness to disclose documents. The government is taking the Speaker of the House of Commons to court right now. The Speaker is about to rule, likely in a fall session, but by dissolving Parliament, I think the government is trying to avoid some of that scrutiny.
Your party's money-raising machinery is very good, almost double, even more than double, I think, federal Conservatives have raised in the last 6 months. Am I right?
I don't know the exact numbers, but we've received a lot of support from Conservative supporters, and we're going to continue to seek that support, obviously. And I think it's a function of the growth we're achieving and interest under Aaron O'Toole. There's growing interest, people that are looking at our party who maybe haven't looked at our party in the past. And I would encourage your listeners, your viewers, to see in that growth an opportunity to re-engage, re-examine, look at what's in the platform, and see what we're going to be putting forward.
Normal situations, people used to say that more money means more popularity and chances of winning. But as many surveys that if you look at those, then they tell me a different story. Before I go for this break, I'll definitely want you to answer in this minute that was there any particular reason that Conservative Party could have spoken louder, but they were mysteriously quiet as far as criticizing the government on pandemic handling and all that?
Well, I think during the pandemic and in general, we've tried to take a constructive approach. That is to be critical of government mistakes, government inaction, government corruption, but also to put forward constructive alternatives, constructive proposals on our own, and to try to work with the government in cases where we can. We've tried to take that constructive approach, and I think Canadians will appreciate that. There's a lot that's going to be said and discussed during the campaign, and I'm especially excited about the discussion that's going to take place on the proposals that we're bringing forward as Conservatives, and the interest that I think some of those proposals are going to generate. For instance, we've just come out with an announcement that we're going to have a national task force on credential recognition, and that's something that Liberals haven't done anything on in the last 6 years. They've been dithering. We're prepared to move forward to strengthen credential recognition for newcomers.
So you were telling us credential recognition and evaluation. What does it contain, that promise?
So this is a key priority for us going into the next election and beyond. Conservatives will create a national task force on credential recognition. This is an issue that many people are aware of the problem. Liberals have talked about it, but in 6 years in government, they've done nothing. So upon taking office, we will create that national task force, bringing together the different stakeholders to put in place an action plan to improve credential recognition. And as part of that commitment, we're going to study mechanisms for pre-qualification. That means mechanisms by which people could achieve...
Sitting in the parent countries.
Yes, exactly. They could achieve Canadian-level certifications in their home countries. And there's a number of ways this could happen. It could happen through partnerships between post-secondary institutions. It could happen through distance learning or opportunities for people that are overseas to challenge exams so that they could get that certification in advance. We want to work to establish mechanisms for that pre-qualification so that people can come here with the certainty that they already hold in their hand that certification that will allow them to get to work as soon as they get off the plane. So we're committed to doing this task force right out of the gate, working with provinces, working with professional associations, and including as part of that investigation of options for pre-qualification as part of that work.
There's a lot of fraudulent activity happening in immigration, and a few days back, Liberals, they were saying that we're going to regulate this process, and it'll start happening in month of November. So what's your take on it, and what's your overall plan to rectify all those mistakes?
Yeah, well, let me say the immigration system needs to be strengthened in terms of its efficiency, its effectiveness. I hear many different concerns about the way the immigration system is operating, about outrageous wait times that people have to experience, the sort of arbitrariness of the lottery for family reunification, and these are problems that we will have specific commitments around fixing. We will have a plan to speed up the wait times, to address the injustice around family reunification, to create mechanisms for people to rectify errors that are made. We need to improve the quality of service for the immigration system, and we have some concrete proposals that we're going to be rolling out very soon on how to do that. So far we've announced the human rights policy as well as the credential recognition policy. I know two things that are very important to your listeners, but we'll have more specific proposals coming in the Conservative plan that will address some of these other issues on things like wait times and other problems.
I have a news segment coming, but quickly, this question comes from one of our callers that last election cost us about $500 million, and this one is expected to cost another $100 million, $610 million tentatively. Yes. Is it worth? This is the price of democracy when we have another 2 years to go?
Well, I think if it was absolutely necessary to have an election, okay. Elections are expensive, but for the government to, in the middle of a pandemic, which likely compounds the cost, for the government to be calling an election in the middle of a pandemic when they have a stable parliament, I think reflects them putting their political interest ahead of the public interest. So we don't control the timing of the election. We're going to be ready for it. But I think we see very clearly what has become a pattern for Justin Trudeau, which is, in this case, ignoring the issues around the fourth wave and just deciding to do what he wants to do, what he thinks is in his political interest.
Let's talk about a little bit about Afghanistan, Garnett, because after 20 years being there, United States, NATO forces, they decided that they're going to leave that place now. And I don't know, you can tell me that, was that a good experiment? Are we successful there? Did we do the things that we were supposed to do? And specifically, the other issue as well, part B of the question, is that translators and many others, the ones who were helpful to the Canadian forces, so we are in the process of bringing them to Canada.
Well, it is a very tragic situation to see the rise of the Taliban, and I think Canadians and others engaged in good faith. We spent blood and treasure working to give freedom and opportunity to Afghans of all backgrounds, of all faiths, men and women. And it's, I think, painful for a lot of people, especially those who served, to see those gains seeming to be rolled back as the Taliban advances. I will just say, again, we honor those who served and fought and did so in pursuit of the highest Canadian ideals. And we need to do all we can in the current circumstances to protect those who are most vulnerable as the Taliban rises. And that's why we have been consistently calling from the Conservative Party for help for interpreters, those who served along with Canadian soldiers, as well as vulnerable religious and ethnic minorities, Sikhs and Hindus, as well as Hazaras. When I got elected 6 years ago, the first statement I made in Parliament was actually about the need for the government to create a special program to help Afghan Sikhs and Hindus be able to be privately sponsored to come to Canada. This was a human rights issue that really grabbed me and that I've been working on for the last 6 years. The government has really done nothing in terms of that direct sponsorship channel up until now. On the eve of the election, there's an announcement today from the immigration minister, and we're still awaiting details of that. The World Sikh Organization tweeted that they're awaiting further details as the program does not apply to those still in Afghanistan and will not be a direct airlift. So it may be too little, too late at this stage, but we're not giving up. We're going to continue strong advocacy. Again, Conservatives have been very consistent in calling for action to help Afghan Sikhs and other minorities. This is very much needed. This is a compelling human rights issue, and we've got to act now before it's too late.
Great. So call कर सकते हो जी 604 204 0600 604 204 0600. We are opening lines. You can ask 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see how many calls I can take. ਸਾਡੇ first caller name Mr. Mukan Singh Gill. Gill sahab, what's your question?
First of all, good afternoon to you and our honorable guest MP. My question is that in this corona problem, it was a world problem, and there was very loss to business and very difficult period for the working class. The Liberal government of Mr. Trudeau has given some benefits, and from the record, not only in papers, I think that Conservative Party has mild difference on this issue. My first question is, if the Conservative Party would have been in power, whether they may have dealt with this question in different way. And my second question is that as in Afghanistan, the Taliban are, I think, mostly coming to power totally in Afghanistan within few days, and most of Indian community and immigrants are in large numbers in Canada, and our relatives, minority communities, Sikhs and Hindus, they are living in there, but not in great numbers, and their lives are in danger. Whether, if the Conservative Party comes in power, whether you will support these minority communities. Only these questions, and bundle of thanks for that.
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਦੂਜਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਖਿਆਲ ਉਹ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਆਨਸਰ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ the first, did you get the question?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, okay, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And just to quickly repeat in response to the second question, Conservatives, myself and others have been for years, since at least 2015, calling for a special program for the direct sponsorship of Afghan Sikhs and Hindus. You're right, very right to say, sir, that this is a relatively small number of families, and the community is ready to provide private sponsorship. It's simply a matter of the government getting out of the way and facilitating it. They've dithered for 6 years. We desperately need action now, because if we don't have action now, it'll be too late. On the COVID support programs, Conservatives sought to work constructively with the government to identify those needs and support them. We supported many of the support programs. We did offer constructive suggestions along the way. For instance, at the beginning, we had called for an increase to the wage subsidy, because we said, isn't it better to facilitate people staying in work through a wage subsidy? Isn't that a better alternative?
Rather than paying them sitting home.
Exactly. And of course, there's going to be some people that are going to be unemployed, and we need to be there to support them as well. But if we had more support for that wage subsidy, and then we also talked in terms of the benefits for unemployment, making it easier for people to return to work, because the way CERB was structured, people who return to work part-time, they would actually be worse off because they would lose benefits. So we made lots of constructive suggestions for how we could structure programs better better in order to support individuals as well as advance the economy. In a few cases, the government listened to those suggestions. In many cases, they didn't. And I'll just say part of the problem as well was that we were already in a deficit position before the start of the pandemic. If we had had a balanced budget before the pandemic started, of course, there still would have been a deficit during the pandemic, but we would have been in a relatively better position to help and support people going into it.
Almost same thing, I think, flavor of the talk, critical talk was our former Prime Minister Stephen Harper in an interview. He said that it wasn't handled professionally. It was a very irresponsible handling of the pandemic recovery program. Mr. Mann is our next caller. Mr. Mann?
Hanji Ramana Sahab, Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal ji.
So, good afternoon to the respected guest. My question is that, respected guest, what improvements will you bring to the immigration system? Because just like the international students, work visas, work permits, and the middleman is making money, people are crying from last couple of years, right? What improvements will you bring to this immigration system?
It's a good question, and this is the most actually talked about issue in South Asian audience.
Well, thank you very much. That is an excellent question. I have to be careful not to pre-announce things that are in the platform because there's a plan behind when to share some of that information. So I will say there are some details that I can't share yet, but I'll be happy to come back on and share them. And people will, I think, be very excited to see the immigration plan because there are a lot of very specific proposals around really all of the key issues that we've been hearing from people in the various communities. The need to improve the fairness and effectiveness of family reunification, huge problems with the response time, challenges with visitor visas, people that are having weddings and family events. The issues we already spoke about in the refugee system. There are many of these items, concrete plans that you'll be seeing as part of our election platform, and I'm excited about sharing those as soon as the opportunity admits. So stay tuned for that. The announcements we've made so far are around credential recognition and pre-qualification, as well as the human rights policy. I believe that people deserve a level of service that they're not receiving right now in terms of immigration. The responsiveness, the simplicity, and the fairness of navigating immigration processes could be and should be improved so much. And look forward to sharing more details on that very soon.
You must, be in a position to answer this question very, in a bit better way because there must be some. Is it a luck that the Liberal government, even after the SNC criticism, even after the We Charity scandal, and then what's happening with the handling of the allegations in the Defense Department, still their popularity is going up? Is it pandemic effect or something else?
Well, it's, I have to say, I have a lot of skepticism about some of the polls. Part of it is just how wildly the polls vary. You'll see one poll from one company and another poll from another company just showing radically different results. I think there's also, I worked in polling before getting elected, so not to get too technical, but there's some evolution and some debate about different polling methodologies that people are using, some of which kind of show different kinds of results. I think what's going to happen is after Sunday, people are going to start to tune in to a much greater extent. They're going to look at the leaders. They're going to look at the platforms. They're going to look at the proposals being put forward, and then they're going to start to draw conclusions. And that very large group of undecided people out there are going to start to move in one direction or another. And I think this is going to be a critical campaign, a critical opportunity to look at what's on offer, and people are going to make decisions. And I do think, as you talk about the Liberal corruption, I think that's going to be a big part of it. The fact that the Prime Minister came in 6 years ago promising a different way of doing politics, and then we've seen a very significant string of corruption scandals. And we've seen in particular during COVID-19 that when the government should have been focused on the public interest, they have been focused on their own interest. They've been trying to use the pandemic as an opportunity to send money to their friends and to those who are well connected. And we see with the election timing again, the government not looking out for the public interest, but prioritizing their own private interest instead.
This morning, as a kind of weird idea that came to my mind, and you can comment on that, I was, going through the chances of election, whether or not we'll have election, 610 million already mentioned the figure that will cost us. And you being a young member of parliament, you can suggest that if Mr. Trudeau is thinking about converting his minority into majority, it's a difference of only 15 seats. So what if your party gives them an option that, okay, 15 of our MPs are resigning and you can have a by-election. You can have a majority if you wish. So please save those 610 million and save the risk of bringing the fourth wave in.
Well, I don't think we would see that happen. It's the prime minister.
At least you can put him in such a position that he won't have a reason to go for election.
Well, I think the bottom line is the Prime Minister's been clear that he wants this election now. Part of why he wants this election as well is I think you can see just some of the other events that are going on in this Parliament. Things like the fact that the government is suing the Speaker in court, and the Speaker is likely to rule against the government again over their failure to hand over the document. So. I think part of it is that they think it's in their political interest to go right now, but it's not just about trying to get a majority. It's also about the fact that they want to put a stop to some of these processes, like the Speaker's potential ruling, that would really expose their lack of respect for Parliament.
We have only 4 minutes left, 3.5 minutes. I want to talk about the Canada-China relationship after Trumpism. Are we doing good on the world scenario? Are we doing good in the Joe Biden's presence? Are we heading in the right direction? Because Mr. Trump was his handling was altogether different.
It was obviously a very different approach to a lot of issues. I guess I would highlight though some of the areas of continuity as well that we've seen. So Justin Trudeau has faced off against 3 different U.S. presidents: Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and now Joe Biden. And we have had significant trade irritants, significant challenges in terms of the economic relationship with all 3 presidents. There's been the softwood lumber issue, which has been ongoing. There's a cancellation of Keystone. There's the further concessions that were made under NAFTA. And I think some people might say, well, Donald Trump was hard to deal with, and I think there's some truth to that. But if you look at the things that the failure to move forward the softwood lumber file, or the loss of the Keystone pipeline under Barack Obama and then Joe Biden, it suggests that we actually have a different problem, which is that Canada's government under Justin Trudeau is not doing an effective job standing up for our interests. We have seen, interestingly, a fair bit of continuity in terms of the American stance towards China from Donald Trump to Joe Biden as well. And in the U.S., standing up against the aggressive actions of the Xi Jinping regime is something of a matter of political consensus. It's something Republicans and Democrats agree on. In Canada, it's not the same. In Canada, really, it's the Conservative Party alone that is standing up to what the government is doing, standing up to the relatively weak posture of the Liberal government when it comes to the aggressive actions of the government of China.
We got a minute and a half, and you can conclude the whole topic today as well. But please do start with Jagmeet Singh is saying that we need to tax the rich. That's the solution.
Well, since you mentioned him, I'll just start off by congratulating Jagmeet Singh and his family on the announcement of their first child. We have 4 kids, and it's always quite a process balancing family life and politics, and I can't imagine what it's like doing that as leader. So best wishes to him.
Did you get married after you became member of parliament?
No, I got married before. So
wow.
I was penniless and unsuccessful.
But you had a degree from London School of Economics. It's a blessing to have the family life and the political life dimension. But I'll just say, I think that on a lot of substantive issues about the challenges facing our economy, the Conservative Party stands apart from the other parties. The other parties, it's about spending, and maybe a little bit more tax, but still large deficit spending even beyond that.
Conservatives want to put our social programs and our economy on a secure footing, moving towards a balanced budget over a 10-year period, and supporting all sectors of our economy so that our economy can grow, supporting the transportation sector, the manufacturing sector, the energy sector, all sectors of our economy so that we can grow. And I think, with all due respect to the NDP, I think they would take us even further in extreme direction on economic issues, as we've seen with the Liberals.
Garnett, thank you very much for being in the studio, and you gave us, time more than our expectations. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to being back in the future.